knows everything.
6:36, and time to welcome in Grant County historian Bill Munn, who, well, at least in the case of this morning, doubled as a meteorologist and did indeed tell us that Chris Daniels is right on the money. There is a little fog out there. Any difficulty getting here, Bill?
No, but I don't know that I would characterize it as patchy fog. I think it's a little more on the pea soup sort of end of things. It was
pretty widespread, huh?
Yeah, like I said, it's like summer in Manila out there. It's hot and just dripping and.
Well, either that or in Cajun country.
In Cajun country,
you want to
yes,
go out and get yourself a gator.
Ophionoki,
yeah.
yes. It's part of our the seasonal variations. So when you think about today, then remember the 10 below zero that crops up in February. So
sit around sweating and eating filet gumbo.
Yes. Yeah. Well, you have to be a special kind of person to stick it out in Indiana over the seasons.
Yeah. We don't have anybody named Thibodeau or A-Bear around here, though.
I think there are a few, but they're folks that have moved in.
How about Amos Moses? Named him after a man of the cloth. Called him Amos Moses. No?
No, doesn't count.
Okay.
No.
Well, Bill...
Boudreaux. We need somebody named Boudreaux.
Boudreaux from Thibodeau.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, Bill, what do you have for us this morning?
Well, this was certainly a big news week for Marion High School. The success on the state tests and removal from probation. I wanted to mention one of the persons that played a key role in that is certainly a Marion original by the name of Jim
Yes.
And, I was thinking about that old line about success having many fathers. Of course, failure is an orphan. But the recent news that the school had been taken off probation has many fathers. Certainly the teachers and students and parents, administrators in the community did come together to help pull this off. As we celebrate this event, I really think it's appropriate to honor a man whose love for our community and for Marion High School in particular has been a constant encouragement and a prime mover in changing the course of Marion High School and enabling this very great accomplishment last week. Jim was recently interviewed for Wiki Marion, our student website, by his granddaughter Jessica. And if you know Jim at all and listening to the tape, you can hear a soft-spoken and modest voice of a man who is very proud of his family and his community. And especially interesting is his recounting of his early days at the family dairy. Now, I know a number of listeners certainly grew up with Sutter Dairy products. Trips to the dairy for ice cream in their ice cream store. That was one of the early things that was pointed out to me when I moved to Marion. Say, you got to stop by Sutter's and get some ice cream. It was
on Nebraska Street.
On Nebraska Street, I think it was, especially in pre-air conditioning days. That was that and going to the movies were about the only two ways you could deal with the heat. But the dairy business was started by Jim's father, and Jim played an active role in that business as a very young man, doing just about every job there was at the dairy. He talks about working deliveries, home deliveries, and again, people remember there was such a thing. There is, I think, now on a sort of limited basis. But everyone got the milk delivered at home, so he worked on home deliveries, but he also worked on the line, and of course, the dairy business is, the cleanliness is absolutely, essential to that, and he talks about, the glass line firing up at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, and then you'd run till 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and then everything had to be cleaned up. And, an interesting thing about about the Sutter Dairy, and an interesting thing that Jim recounts was that after World War II, a lot of the returning veterans had experience with milk in cartons. Because of the war, the glass bottles were not used, and really preferred milk be delivered in that way. And that Sutter Dairy was one of the earlier dairies to adapt their lines to paper cartons. Now, certainly glass bottles continued as a parallel for a long time, but he talks about at one point Sutter Dairy was actually filling paper containers for 6 or 7 other dairies around in the north central Indiana and Ohio area, and in that sense, it was a real innovation. Another innovation, of course, that Sutter Dairy pioneered in this particular area was the convenience store. And Jim recounts that it was his father had made some trips to Florida and run into the 7-Elevens down there, and came back and brought it up to the family that that might be the way to go, is to distribute the milk products. And that was the first effort was distributing the milk products, but then you distributed all the other things that went with it, and essentially replaced the small neighborhood grocery store in a lot of cases.
Mm-hmm.
But I know a lot of people remember Handy Andy.
And Handy Andy was the Sutter's convenience store. Yeah.
So the family and Jim in particular were really innovators in the dairy business. And after his successful career with Sutter Dairy, he could have retired to a life of leisure, but he chose to remain committed to his community and to his school. And I think 2 projects alone would be a magnificent life. One would be the restoration of the Coliseum, which I personally believe would not have happened had it not been for his leadership and his guidance and direction and his generosity, and also his work on the efforts to get the community behind Marion High School. And that was a little more behind the scenes than most people know, but I happen to have seen Jim and his wife and his family in Marion High School, in the back room stuffing envelopes. I know he made phone calls and organized meetings. And again, a real Marion original, an entrepreneur, a businessman, a great family guy, and a very proud Marion High School graduate.
As recently as a couple of months ago, Jim was at a Marion City Council meeting. It was the City Council meeting at which this arena project for east of town was approved. And Jim had some reservations